Chances are that you've heard the term citizen developer being thrown around at work, and you're wondering, does this mean I have to do even the work of even more people? Coming up on Today in Tech, we're going to talk about whether this new trend of everyone being a developer is a real trend or just overblown hype. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Joining me here in the studio today is Andy Dovgan. He is the Chief Growth Officer at Creatio. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's talk about a little bit about this idea of citizen developers, because I'm sure there's people that have heard this term around at work. There might be people that have no idea what this is. So I want to get into a little bit about how this term came about. Was this created by an analyst firm like Gartner, and because they're looking at a market of companies, or is this a real trend that you've seen in as workplaces evolve? Also, then I wanted to know whether there's a general accepted definition of citizen developer.
Yeah, let's start with the history, or why don't we start with the demand? If we look across all organizations, almost in all industries, I think that with likes of Amazon, we now have so much high expectations about everything digital, about digital processes. And I think that those expectations are coming from both angles. They're coming from a customer angle. So customers just not ready to wait in a line. They're not ready to work with papers. They want slick digital processes. And on the other hand, we have employees, like a new generation of employees coming to work, and they have certain expectations about types of software applications they're going to work with. Okay. And I think that it will be really, really difficult to convince someone who just graduated from a college to work with AS400 or stuff of that nature, with a green line, or, you have to modernize. And I think that it's coming from all sorts of different angles. So organizations need to find a way how to go to the digital much quicker. And if we look across population of software developers that are major contributors to everything digital transformation, we will see that we only have 25 million of software developers available globally. Okay. And the growth rate of software development population is very slow. It's only 4%. If you look across certain sectors of technology, specifically business automation, the growth rate of business automation is much quicker than 4% of software developers. Now, I think there are multiple ways how we can go about it, and citizen development is just one of the strategies, but it's a very efficient strategy, because the promise behind citizen development is that instead of just trying to focus on a smaller population of highly skilled and highly creative people, why don't we just go and widen a number of people that can participate in a software development. Right. And why don't we take people that understand the process, understand the technology, but who don't have necessarily coding skills, and let them contributors to all digital transformation projects. So what I'm hearing is that it was a combination of a lot of those different things. It was the rise of a new generation of employees that are very comfortable with technology and have probably grown up with it, and have probably dabbled in, I don't want to say dabbled in development, but understand at least digital transformation. And but then you have a lack of traditionally trained software developers that you'll need in the future, especially if you're transforming everything to, digitally, you're going to need more and more people to develop the new types of apps. So as this developed, or as people were noticing these trends, then Gartner did come up with this definition, right? Or at least... To be honest with you, I don't know how exactly did that happen, but I think that Gartner was the first who coined the term. And the definitions that Gartner used, and still they still are using it, is that citizen developer is someone who is not coming from IT department. So they're very function specific. It's not IT, but who uses IT approved platforms and technology to automate business processes and to create applications or participate in creation of those applications. Right. To be honest with you, my personal opinion, as a practitioner in the field, I think that this is a little bit too narrowed, because in a lot of organizations, the borderline between IT and non-IT is not that visible. So that's why I think that the other way to look at this will be to define a citizen developer or a no-code developer, someone who doesn't have coding skills, who doesn't have deep technical skills, but someone who can use visual no-code tools to build applications or help other, be a part of a team that builds those applications. And right now, it's not only visual tools; it's also natural language with an expansion of generative AI.
Right. Okay. And so the reason that a lot of these new applications came out, like a lot of these tools, no code, low code, I guess is there medium code? I guess is there another one? Because you didn't want to have your companies trying to train all of these new people in traditional programming, because that would just take too long. And traditional development languages, you don't want to have to do that. So that's why they're like, oh, we'll bring in these tools and we'll let the tools do the heavy lifting, so to speak. Is that kind of where you see a lot of these?
I think there are multiple. There are multiple ways of organization entry, I would say. I think that a lot of organizations started to solve this problem by just buying packaged software, but they ended up with a lot of different problems associated with that. So they have just a lot of apps, and it became an app proliferation problem. And also, if you're sizable enough enterprise, a problem of integration, a problem of configuration, a problem of overall management of those applications can become a nightmare. So you understand that you need something that is more tailored, that off the shelf kind of a solution.
Right.
So that's one side of the house. And the second one is a constant push from business people who see digital and technology as a way how to compete, as a way how to differentiate as a market. I think that a lot of business people would come to IT organization and say, tomorrow we need to launch this project. And by the way, this project cannot be launched without this particular automation.
Right.
And you have to deal with that.
Right.
And then the third, as a result of that, we saw an expansion of shadow AI, shadow IT, where a lot of people would, from business side, will go and buy or try to customize a lot of stuff. But there is a very strong saying that if you cannot defeat them, you need to join them, or in ideal world, you want to lead them. So the idea of citizen development was how can we combine all of those trends that we're seeing, bring to the table customized enough solutions, enable business people, deliver this strong time to market, and do that in alliance with business teams, not as something that's kind of stand aside only with the IT organization.
Right. When you look at the company, when you look at the companies that you've worked with, a lot of the clients that you've had at Creatio, does there tend to be a specific business department or a business side of the company that gravitates towards this? Is it all sales and marketing driven revenue, to bring revenue in or to be more competitive, or because it feels weird. So I'm on an editorial side where I create content and I work on video and other apps, and I've tried some of these tools and I look at it and go, I can't do this, or it would take me too long to learn a lot of these tools. So what departments within a company do you generally see? Because we're not going to make admins, for example, start learning this stuff. Is it finance? Is it HR? Is it accounts receivable, accounting? I guess sales. Where do you see it?
When we start talking about kind of organizational layer of citizen development program, I think there are multiple ways how to go about it. The two general streams how you can organize it is by centralizing this function, and this function can sit within digital, within IT, within business, and it's very organizational specific. It depends on type of leadership, type of a culture, type of a skill sets that you have, and also your strategy. What is it that you're trying to approach? If you're trying to really elevate employee experience, probably it will be closer to admin and HR. If you're trying to streamline your go-to-market operation, probably that's where this organization will be more suitable to be sitting. But I think that another motion is more decentralized. Then there's one center of excellence that defines citizen developers within different arms of the business, and that works with them to empower and engage and make them extremely productive. So we've seen both models work really, really well. And the foundational piece is how strong of the leadership do you have, how strong of the commitment do you have for this, and how strong is the programs that you are trying to launch.
Right. Now, do you see developers, existing developers that might have that strong programming language background? Do you see them embracing a lot of these tools or this concept, or do they start to feel maybe that they're threatened by this? Like, how welcoming does a developer see when they're like, okay, well, we're going to get Joe from accounting to write this app for you instead of going to you?
I think that is there a fine line?
Yeah,
it's a chief misconception.
Okay.
I think that I would argue that IT is the biggest beneficiary of this process. The reason being is that all talented software developers that I met are extremely interested in solving creative and complex problems.
Okay.
They don't want to go and build those 5 fields and those simple UI forms or simple business logic. They want to solve creative problems. That's the reason why this profession exists. And the idea behind Citizen Developer is that you can delegate all simpler stuff using the Lego block approach, where you will take a lot of different pre-configured things and you will assemble them into an application, not develop, but assemble into what you have available. And then you will use developers as a very precise profession, where they will go and solve this most complex problems. And those problems can be integrations, can be something related to business logic, but something that will require their skill set and will enable them to grow. I think that organization needs to an organization that wants to implement citizen development program needs to bring a lot of right education and PR around that and align business organizations and IT. In the most successful cases that I've seen on the market, IT team is over the moon in regards to having a citizen development program.
Okay.
And in a lot of organizations with visionary CIOs, those citizen development programs were started by CIOs and by IT people because they realized they look at what they have. They looked at
their talent shortage, probably, right?
I think there are so many different reasons to look at it. First, they look at, imagine that you are in California or in Massachusetts, and you are a regional bank or a manufacturing company. How do you compete with those shiny unicorn software companies for strong software talent?
Yeah.
It's almost impossible. Or you need to really break the bank to be able to do that. So that's one problem. And secondly, imagine that you have a very limited headcount, and within that headcount, you have your backlog that you're going to deliver.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, it's unrealistic to do that. Not to mention that it will be some additional business critical projects and transformations happening. So I think that forward-looking digital leaders will seek for help and will use that as a strong leverage to free up a lot of time so that their development resource can be used for the most complex and difficult tasks to solve.
Now, if you do see companies that are becoming visionary and they're looking to do this approach, they could also get in trouble if they start to try to mandate this with a lot of their employees, right? So it feels like if you wanted to become a citizen developer, it would be more have to be voluntary rather than a CEO getting up there and going, okay, guess what, everybody, you're all now citizen developers. Like that just seems like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it may be a little bit of fraud, but I will share with you this story. I was with my customer. It was about 2 years ago. I was with my customer. They are extremely successful with no code. They're automating all sorts of different processes. They're like a financial services organization. And their VP was sitting with us and brainstorming how can they significantly increase the citizen development team. And he came up with an idea that we didn't support. So his idea was, why don't we on Friday at 3:30 p.m. we'll go to the main exit and entrance door, and I'm going to catch everyone who's leaving earlier because they clearly have a capacity to contribute, and we have our backlog, so why don't we join the forces? I think this is not the right way to do that. I think that first you need to identify who can be a citizen developer. Another big misconception is that almost every end user can become a citizen developer. It's absolutely categorically not true.
Okay.
If you take a standard salesperson who is great in communication skills, great in presentation skills, but doesn't have systematic thinking and doesn't understand how entities are connected, you're probably going to get very poorly designed software, even with lots of Lego blocks and lots of guidance and AI-assisted development. So you need to find someone, and for me, a lackmus test is always find someone who can build a complex Excel file with macros, with some connectivities between entities, or can draw a business process using a standard notation, say BPMN.
Okay.
If you can find someone who has those skills, there is a big likelihood that this person gonna make it to a really good start with citizen development. And if you look across your organization, you'll find a lot of people in your operations. You mentioned about go-to-market teams, sales ops, marketing ops, everything revenue related. You'll have a lot of people that are very familiar with technology and who understand how different elements work with each other, and they will be your best candidates. But
so how do you? I guess what skill? Yeah. How do you find those skills within the company? Do you just pass out a test? Or after lunch you go, hey, or I guess how do you identify those skills?
I think that in most of the cases, those skills are visible. Like you'll have certain roles like analysts or operations people, like you will know that they somehow already contribute to development efforts. If you're talking about business applications, a lot of those people would be working on business applications projects. So that will be a no-brainer. And then depending on how big is your organization, if you're Shell, and actually Shell is one of the largest citizen development practices in the world. If I'm not mistaken, they have 10,000 citizen developers, and they create thousands of different applications. So they have a more sophisticated process of identifying and creating this volunteer program. But for the initial step, I think that those initial citizen developers will be very, very visible. But now, even if you go to Glassdoor or some other job websites, a lot of people hire for citizen development jobs, and there are lots of academies and a lot of certifications already focused towards that profession.
That's a great comment, because that would lead me to another question. As a job seeker, if you're either in IT, for example, or if you're just looking for a new job, is it easy for them to learn new skills by using some of these applications that are out there, some of these low-code, no-code stuff?
I think if you have prerequisites, if you have structured thinking, if you enjoy processes, understanding how things work together, I think that you will be a great candidate for that. So,
like for example, to use me as an example, you gave the two examples. One was the Excel spreadsheet, and I was like, forget it. But I do understand a lot about processes and executing processes and kind of the flow of different things. Now, I don't know if not in a traditional sense where I need to start drawing a flow chart, but I understand some logics of how things work. So I think maybe I could do it, but
so probably because you're not experiencing the best tools for no code,
right?
If I needed something more intuitive.
Well, gee, I wonder what company you would suggest. Anyway, all right. So you had mentioned earlier the idea of the shadow IT, and we're also now starting to see that we're calling it shadow AI, which is a lot of the employees or end users that are using tools that might not be approved by the IT department or the company. So how do you enable a citizen developer program without having it devolve into a shadow IT situation?
I think if you look at the root problem, the reason why shadow IT exists is because sometimes IT teams struggle to deliver on needed timelines. I'll give you my example.
You had I want you to give your example. But you mentioned earlier, the business leader comes in and says, "Oh, I need to launch this program next week."
Correct.
And IT would come back and was like, "Well, we need 6 months to do this," and then they go, "Fine, I'll do it myself."
No, this is like a very
6 months.
Very fast IT organization.
So your example. Yeah.
For example, at Croatia, we drink our own champagne, and we have our innovation team that does all no code and citizen development for us. And we have a rule: there is no development resource available there. And I lead quite sizable team. I have like 100 people in my marketing organization, and we came up with a new big initiative. And that was my first time experience in this process. And I know my citizen developers. We've built great relationships. They understand my problems and what are problems that I'm trying to achieve, goals that I'm trying to achieve. And so I came to them with this big project for target accounts, and they were able to roll out the full-blown MVP in 2 weeks. If I can get result that quickly, I have zero intention. I think that 95% of business people have zero intention to learn how to create applications or how to get super technical. I think that they need their stuff to be done. And that's an answer to a lot of different questions. A second answer is that you need to give a program that will enable people without a friction to get access to needed digital capabilities without a need to go and swipe a card for $20 to get something that was not authorized by IT.
Right.
And we've seen a lot of organizations with robust digital capabilities and with strong and innovative IT teams were able to accomplish that. It's not 100% achievable in all the cases, but we've seen a tremendous progress done by a lot of organizations where an employee just understands that it's much easier to cooperate and to work with agile enough team to get the results done rather than just waste colossal amount of time trying to experiment on their own.
Okay. Now, does this also require that a company is like younger or smaller than a typical company? Like, can a company that's been around for 50, 60 years can they adopt this, or is it a little harder because they've got structures already built? Like how much restructuring needs to go on, not only from departments to department, but then people within those departments and some of the like reporting structures that you get?
I think there are two aspects to this question. I'll start with the first one.
Yeah.
We've seen tremendous success with very traditional organizations that you would not think of when you think about innovation and citizen development. We have a lot of incredible examples with governmental institutions, because if you think from a different angle, government organizations are under tremendous pressure from citizens in regards to experiences and also security and compliance requirements. So they need to develop a lot of digital capabilities, but they are by default, by design, limited with the number of resources that they have available. So they have to find creative ways. And we have one of the proudest projects we've done was for a country that has 7,000 of users and a lot of municipalities and a lot of Minister of Finance and Minister of Infrastructure. And they manage a budget of $10 billion of investment into infrastructure. And 93% of that application was built with no-code tools. So that's I think an incredible achievement. And then also banks and credit unions and insurance companies. If you are not a Bank of America of the world, you need to compete with them because that's kind of an expectation from the customers in regards to what type of experiences you need to offer to them. So it's there is a big external push to develop those capabilities.
Well, as you had mentioned, Shell even earlier is one of the biggest examples, and that that company's been around for decades and decades. So it's not necessarily those startups, because you mentioned your company. Obviously, you'd want to make sure that you're having all of your people are citizen developers within your company, but it's a younger company than Shell.
Yes, but we have examples of government institutions, we have examples of banks, we have examples of manufacturing companies. And then to your second part of the question, there's always a maturity curve. I think that you cannot go from 0 to 100 miles and you just turn everyone into a citizen developer. Actually, I've met one person at Gartner conference a month ago, and they tried that and they were not able to accomplish what they needed, because they needed to have a very well thought plan and framework and methodologies. Actually, that's the reason why we have written Vendor Agnostic No-Code Playbook to help.
I'm going to hold this up. Say, this is you were one of the contributors to this, right?
Yes.
The No-Code Playbook. Yeah.
It's your
playbook.
And if you list all the most complex projects I've done in my life, I think this will be one on the top, because it takes a lot of kind of time and effort to really go deep into the methodology to make it practical and make it reusable. So I think there is a maturity curve. You need to understand what types of apps you're trying to build, because in a lot of cases, it's a combination of do-it-yourself applications that can be launched very, very simply with minimal support and minimal compliance requirements. Then you get to the second level of complexity. We called it Center of Excellence, that will require centralization of this function. And then the third level will be what we call fusion teams. That's where organizations work on business critical applications, and they use a combination of development resources and citizen developers to solve complex problems.
So where do some of the failures happen then? Is it because the companies try to do this too fast and they do that 0 to 100 implementation, or are there some other possibilities where they might try a program and then it doesn't work for either that company or for that project?
I think that the major pillars that you want to have in your citizen development program, you need to have a strong ownership. You need someone who wants to lead it. And you Keith, you asked about the question where it should sit. My strong belief, it should sit with people that really own it and that want this to be a successful venture. I think that the leadership and the desire to go through the walls to deploy it, it's important with anything, with any initiative. And this is not an exception. Secondly, I think it's also a plan where you partner with right people at the right time, and you develop and you evolve this function. For example, a lot of system integrators can offer a lot of services and support in regards to helping you to deploy initial applications and then work with you to grow your capabilities. I think that your technology vendors can help you a lot with understanding what types of applications you want to build and also grow those competencies. I think that having a plan and having a leadership are fundamental pillars of success. You're going to hit a lot of different learning points, and I think that the No-Code Playbook and types of those programs will help you to get a guide and understand how to do that. But I think that with those components, we've seen a lot of success to be very confident that this is achievable for a lot of organizations out there.
Yeah, and a lot of these concepts that were developed for this citizen developer movement were developed before the big elephant in the room, which is the Gen AI onslaught that we've seen. So as you've been in this space for a while, do you see Gen AI and all of the spotlight that gets shined on that?
Yeah.
Do you see that taking away from the citizen developer movement, or do you see that, oh no, now we have a partner, now we have another, and you can integrate generative AI development along with citizen developers, or are they going to be butting heads?
Yeah. I think that it will definitely add some fuel into the process in a positive way, in my opinion. Because what Gen AI does, specifically in the software development space, it further lowers down the barriers for entry. Now, if I'm a citizen developer and I'm proficient with all the visual tools, I can ask Gen AI to give me a sample of a code, and I can push it so much more further in regards to what I can do with those applications. So now I need software developers even in less cases and less situations. I think it's important for no-code vendors and low-code vendors to understand how to combine Gen AI and no-code, because some aspects should be done with visual tools and some aspects should be done with Gen AI. But there are already a lot of incredible examples and incredible experiences. Like, you can share a description of an application that you want to build with your platform, and it will pre-generate a template for you, and you can go really into depth. You can also do iterative development. Like, for example, you can tell your platform to build a process for you. It will build a process, and you will say, okay, can you change this element? Can you add this element? Can you add this integration? So the possibility is absolutely enormous. And we will see a lot of non-development people entering the space because of Gen AI. I think that it will become a major accelerator in the software development space.
Right. On the visual side of things, you talk about a lot of these tools with the Lego blocks, and you're building and you're stacking, and there's still a sense of a logic going through this. Do you see a lot of these AI tools? If I wanted to switch from a visual representation into this is what I wanted to do, would these tools? I've seen tools automatically go right to the code. And if I did that, I'd look at it and go, I don't know what this code means. I don't know if it's going to work or not. I'd rather see a tool going, build me this, and this is what I wanted to do. And then it builds the Lego block for you, or it builds the Lego sculpture or whatever. And then you can then say, all right, well, now convert this into code.
I agree with you. I think that the ultimate goal is to...
are we seeing that now, or are we going to see that?
We're seeing it now. Okay. So we call it composable architecture. Composable architecture is where you decompose everything into smaller Lego blocks and smaller pieces. And the development itself can become a creation of those smaller components that actually software developers can do. And then no-code creators will take all of those experiences and they will bring it together. And that's actually how no-code and low-code vendors are bridging the gap between out-of-the-box best practices and level of configuration and customization that you need to achieve. For example, if I have a lot of different elements for an insurance company for a claim management process, I will have a lot of different ready-to-use blocks. So then they can take them and slightly configure and assemble them into an application with the best practice already in mind. Because if you look across a lot of organizations, they don't want to create stuff from the scratch. Because if there is already a common knowledge, a best practice, you want to take advantage of that. But you want to allow yourself for a certain level of configuration and customization so that you can really capture a secret sauce and do things the way you want it to be done.
If you get a lot of the citizen developers that they get into this and they start creating things, there still needs to be, I want to say, validation and confirmation of whatever gets developed. Is that when you then throw it over to the developer team, or in theory you'd be working together at this point? It then goes to them to make sure that nobody screwed up. Even if you're using AI, you still need that other validation, right?
So there is a big concept of no-code governance available on the market, and smart vendors invest a lot into this because this is another big concern of IT organizations. They're saying, all right, I understand the need for decentralized development. I understand why citizen development is so important, but now my biggest fear is that now it will turn everything into chaos because people will start working with a lot of kind of things that are not being vetted, not being validated, can create some concerns in regards to security and compliance. So to address that, you need to have both from a process perspective and from a technology perspective, the governance layer. And you need to understand what types of checks you need to fill in order to release an application. So in an ideal world, the way how it works is that a citizen development team or a Fusion team, they build an application or an element of this application. Then they push it to the governance application that will go and check all possible conflicts with functionality. Like, for example, people are using the same entity in different ways, so it can create a conflict. Or, for example, you're exposing some critical customer data or some sensitive data outside, everything related to permissions, everything related to operations and some ways of doing business. It will check automatically what kind of possible issues can be identified. And then before a specific officer within your company whitelists that, you are not able to push that into the production.
Right.
So from one hand, you take an advantage of accelerated development effort in everything related to Lego blocks and citizen development. On another hand, you use as this additional layer of confirmation, so you are not pushing it through until it's fully validated.
Right. So another question I had was, could this, and this is related to the shadow IT part where you started seeing a lot of people in the business side of the business they would just do that $20 credit card swipe, and now all of a sudden an IT department has 1,000 different apps that they have to manage. Could the citizen developer route reduce the reduce the amount of apps that people will then buy? Because the idea is, well, you don't have to go out and look for these apps. You can actually just create it your own, and then it'll be done in a safer development. Do you see that happening, or is it still going to be the segments of the analogy I like to use is the baking a cake? You could do it by scratch, which would be your coders and your programmers. You could go into the store and buy one, and that's sort of what we're talking about here. It's like you get the modules of the cake, or you could just go to the store and buy a completed cake, and that's where these SaaS apps come in. So we're trying to get everybody to make the cake themselves, but with these pre-measured modules. Or is this just a horrible analogy?
No, I like this analogy. Okay. I think that you spot on. I think that the overall trend is to unify and to get rid of hundreds or thousands of different apps, because a lot of IT organizations, coming back to our initial point when we started about the digital transformation needs, a lot of organizations realize that they can manage a few platforms, but this is it. They cannot manage all of those applications, because now you need to integrate them, you need to ensure data consistency, upgrade management, and it becomes a kingdom on its own. So a lot of organizations expect their platforms to consolidate that and to decommission a lot of older apps, but also some SaaS apps that you're using for simple things. So you can do all of that, but you can also provide this tailored experience, application level experience to your end users, but within one platform. Think about that as an iPhone in Apple in general. So you have this platform and you have a lot of different apps. You have your banking app, you have your, for example, Facebook, those types of things, but it's all interconnected. You don't need to manage 700 different devices with their operational systems. You manage one ecosystem, but then all apps can be very complex, but can be very simple, and they can be disconnected or connected together, and you decide how to work with that.
Yeah. Realistically, how long does it take for a company to get involved? I mean, would they have to look around at their company and see what's going on right now? Like, again, there's probably some of this already going on at most companies, but they might not realize that it's happening. But if someone is really excited about this idea, or they've looked and go, we don't have enough developers, we need to get some more. Realistically, how long does it take to go through that process? And again, I know you say levels of maturity, but
Correct.
like, each step, how long does it take? Is this going to be a 3-year thing, or is it going to be, oh no, we can get this done in 3 months?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I'm a big advocate for an idea that you have to pick significant applications that you want to start with.
Start with what project, right?
Because like, for example, you have a backlog of say 50 applications. pick the one that is relatively critical, the ones that will require a lot of energy and concentration, and probably this is a good candidate to use for a low-code, no-code development, but in a guided and right way, right? So with that in mind, you definitely need to. Circling back, I think the reason why it's important is that if you want to use this kind of citizen developer project as a side project, and it doesn't have a lot of energy and business criticality, with our busy lives, there is a big likelihood that no one is gonna really push the boundaries with that. But you have to drive this project further. So I would select something that is important, like an important initiative.
Yeah.
And I would always start with a use case. I don't think that a citizen development program without a use case exists in the real world. Secondly, you need to understand who can you partner with in regards to seeing how this can be done, realizing the benefit of it, but also get your initial people trained. I won't start immediately configuring the solution because you need to see how this can be done, and that's where you can work with your technology provider or with a system integrator.
Yeah, I was going to say consultants. Is this something that you're seeing consultants do?
Yes.
Bringing those to the table?
Correct.
Yeah.
You want to work with consultants. You want them to demonstrate how it's done, but also you want your people to get really hands-on and start working with that. And I would set up a time frame for the initial project with a sizable application to be deployed to 2 and 3 months.
Oh, okay.
Because I think that if you're not able to deliver the result that quickly, then I would question how much of the impact does it give.
Yeah.
I like to joke that every time when we meet a customer and they are thinking about going no-code, low-code, or going with traditional SaaS vendors, I tell them that we will be able to deploy your business applications quicker than you're going to sign NDA with one of those big traditional vendors.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases,
And they go, get out.
and usually it takes them 2-3 months to sign an NDA. So that's the time frame.
Well, I think it was funny. That reminds me of another show where we were talking about generative AI and how fast or slow the technology gets developed. And the guy said to me, he goes, a lot of companies, it takes a year for a lot of big enterprises to kind of just get through legal with a lot of these programs. So if you can avoid I'm going to say avoid the legal department, I'm going to get in trouble with my own lawyers here. All right, let's. So, where do you see then the future happening? It still feels like we're in the real early days. And of course, we've got this little side distraction of Gen AI going on. So do you see that this has legs, this has steam, that this is how most companies will be structured in the next 5 years? You won't even see, it'll become a job description of, well, I'm hiring someone.
Yeah.
All right, do you know how to do Word? And then is it going to be, do you know how to do some kind of development?
Yeah.
Do you know some of these tools?
I think that from an overall perspective, I see that technology is becoming and it will become a skill. Similar to presentation skills or, for example, language skills, it's becoming a skill. Definitely for different roles, you will need a different level and degrees of this skill and development of it. So in regards to the automation, I'm a true believer that in the nearest future, let's say 3-5 years, a lion's share of applications will be done through Gen AI and no-code, low-code tools because of the speed of change that we experience.
Yeah.
Like if you deploy a significant applications, what is the likelihood that you're not going to change that in 3 and 5 years? Almost zero.
Right.
So
right.
It has to be a very agile and diversified way how you can manage that. And the more freedom you give to your business people, the more freedom with guardrails and guidelines they have, the more successful you become. I think that in this race, we're going to see a lot of winners, and we already seen a lot of winners, companies that do tremendous stuff that can quadruple the speed of their competitors and can roll out digital experience much quicker than any of their competitions. And they're not necessarily the biggest organizations in the world, but also we'll see some traditional conservative losers who are going to stick to the way how it used to be and not being able to transform and digitize to the speed that they need to do that.
All right. Are citizen developers generally happier at work? Like, do they, when you talk to someone who might not have had any coding experience at all, and then they've used, some of these tools, do you find that they enjoy this, or do they go, oh yeah, it's just another part of my job? Or like, they must be somewhat happy about this.
I think that,
or do they see the dollar signs and go, yeah, I get paid more because I can do this?
Software developers are happy because now they've been asked to do more interesting things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. On the yeah.
And
I'm talking about the business side of things.
And then citizen developers are also happy because I'm definitely biased in my opinion. But now look, what makes us happy? Freedom and empowerment. If you have more freedom to do stuff and you're empowered to do that, and you're able to make a significant impact with those technologies, of course you're going to be happier in your life. Because if you can go and build an application and give it to your team and then they can get the result, I think that this can bring a lot of satisfaction. And to your earlier point, it makes you more expensive on the market.
Does citizen developer become a job title at some point, or more of just a bullet point on your resume skill type set?
I think for centralized no code practices, it's already a job. Even though like in initial description of citizen development, it's a role, not a title. But now we see a lot of people hiring for no code creators, no code developers, and citizen developers. So it would definitely like the number of those postings on Glassdoor is going up.
Yeah.
But also for decentralized settings, you also see people having that as a skill. Like, for example, I know how to do Excel, complex Excel, and I know how to build an application.
Yeah. So do you ever see a world where you get a chief citizen developer officer, or does this role or fall into a CIO, CTO, that type of type? Will we see the leader of this center of excellence become a C-level executive?
Yes, we've seen that.
Okay.
We've seen GM titles, we've seen C-level titles. Usually they would have like a broader definition, for example, chief digital officer, but within that, 95% of what they do is no-code development or fusion teams. So they're overseeing the most critical digital projects in their company. So, and I know a lot of people who made very strong careers from bringing this innovation and technology to their organizations.
Oh, that's really cool. Mm-hmm. I like the term fusion teams. That's great. All right, Andy Dovgan, thanks again for joining us here on the show. It was a great discussion that we had.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you.
That's all the time we have for today's episode. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and add any thoughts you have below. Join us every week for new episodes of Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Thanks for watching.